How's your practice going?
It's going. I think showing up here and doing some reading has been and continues to be liberating, I think is the right word.
Reading is stepping out of your own mind into the possibility of entering the its mind, the its mind of wisdom. So it's important to read certain things to relieve yourself of the burden of knowing anything. Also, in the process of reading certain things, you can also, if you're conscious of what it is, then you can sense the amount of space you are deriving from whatever it is you're reading. And that would be the balance to the time tensions that you have accumulated when you're not reading such a work of such a process as spiritual practice and so on. So it's important to find, let's say, inner space, and sometimes the only way a lot of people are going to get to it is to read texts of the sort that you're reading now, and gauge where you are relative to time, let's say suppression or oppression, and what that means relative to your need for a certain kind of space. And in this sense, we're talking about release, space, release, expansion. Yeah. Or sitting meditation, which is similar. That is to say, an opportunity to let go of thought processes, emotional patterns, and any kind of memory that's in any way, shape, or form burdening you with, let's say, the pressure of time past karma that you're holding on to in the moment, or all the time, generally speaking, and for the moment you want to let go of it so you can just breathe more clearly, freely, and revive, let's say, a certain level of functioning of the brain that has to do with deeper consciousness.
Earlier you mentioned neurotic behavior, neurotic thought patterns, things like that.
Uptightness, yeah.
Mm.
And it's something which, once you become aware of it, you let go of it. Because nobody is that. But when you're not as conscious as you will be, or need to be, then you tend to fall into the pattern of taking on stress to the degree where you validate it and you crystallize it into a physical, if not an emotional condition. See? Unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. So there's stress, and then when you're aware of stress and you're conscious of it, you can de-stress. Similarly, if you have pain in the body, if you can become conscious of it in a certain way, you can relieve yourself of the pain. Yeah.
You also earlier mentioned that when you're around people...
When who's around people?
You. When you, Tisziji.
What people?
Okay.
Go ahead.
That even though there's, people stuff, problems being aired, discussed, you said that you're not interested in them and you're not even paying attention to it.
Well, we're talking now about the phenomena of the stream effect of minds, plural minds, different minds, with people being in their own, let's say, preferred or self-created, I prefer self-created, preferred, mind streams, streams, wavelengths. So I'm not interested in wavelengths, per se. I'm not interested in stories, but for the most part, the people who come to see me, visit me, or associate with me are coming from their story see, their mind stream, their background, see, their suffering in some cases. So am I interested in it? No, but does it show up and I deal with it? Yes, definitely, I have to deal with it. Yeah. Let's say it's also called the stuff of the world in terms of the field of karma that pervades the world at this point, because we are creating it. We are co-creating the field of karma, earth karma. Yeah. Yeah. It's not something that's other than what we are, what other than the body is. See, it's not something that's other than how we feel or what we think or what we know. See, it's part of the same continuum. We're talking about relative densities and vibrations, vibratory rates that are part of the mix. See, wavelengths, see, energies that are part of this cosmic stream. And we're trying to survive as individuals, we try to survive in it. So you want to be able to manage being balanced in the midst of some of the worst of it and also be open to some of the best of it at the same time. But it is an oceanic event. We're breathing it. We're living it. See? But not necessarily at the level that it appears. And so the difference is we need to know about what is appearing and what is beyond appearing that is also present. See? And to the degree that we can perceive or know or acknowledge and resonate with that which is present beyond appearance, to that degree there could be more healing than a person knows. So it's important then to go to a deeper state, be open to the concept of a deeper state, and then be open to the practice of a deeper state in order to inevitably, or I would say ideally, if you can get to that place, enter that state, see, and know what that state is for oneself. Mm-hmm. So getting back to disinterest or not interested, yeah, I'm interested in certain things, that is sharing a certain level of disinterest with other beings. Mm-hmm. Disinterest also equals uncomplicatedness, see? Non-complication. Mm. It might relate to a certain kind of healing presence. So disinterested is good for, let's say, my point of view of maintaining the healing. See? The healing of being, the being of healing. Earlier you were talking about the disgust of bliss and the bliss of disgust. We're talking about the healing of being and the being of healing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in other words, there's no one but the total. And it's good for us to enter that level of understanding. See? So then we're also then referring to a state of non-selfishness. See? Selflessness, but non-selfishness. In other words, from the selfless condition, all realities can be more or less resonant and related to. So, it's all present. So it's not about people, it's not about their stuff, but of course we're in a world of beings, all kinds of beings. So we deal with them as we meet them, see? Without special interest, let's say, but with an openness that is not specialized in terms of interest unless the situation warrants very specific or special, let's say, interest. So it's more like being open, to being open, rather than specifying, one species, one being, one person more than the other, say, in general. And of course we are more intimately related to people that we are closer to by, let's say, by nature and by function, right? Sometimes by role, or by some kind of karmic coincidence. And then it becomes a matter of either identifying yourself with the situation to the degree where you slow it down and make it more personal, and it could be necessary to do that under certain conditions, or where you move through it impersonally without putting any vibrations out there in terms of liking it or disliking it. It just is what it is. And you can move through it, or you can hang with it, let's say. You just not so much hang out with it, but just be with it. As long as it seems necessary to do that. The question is, what's necessary?
And it seems like, in all cases, the person in that situation would need to know, would need to have a sense of that for themselves.
They always do. Right. They may not think in those terms, but they always do. Let's say if it's a nice-looking woman that comes by, the guys, because of their programs, would say, I need to hang out with this for no reason at all. Well, it's come my way, so maybe it has something to do with me personally. So we start to project stuff on it and make it more than it needs to be. In some cases, we need to be aware of that. As we can make it more important, we can make it less important. We can free ourselves just as easily and as immediately as we can bind ourselves. If you have no better place to be at, you might be where you are for the moment. There are levels of intelligence that are, for many, very confounding, right? Profound even. We can't figure out what it is because we're not up at the level. Same level, let's call it. So you have difference and sameness, right, coexisting and co-emerging at the same time, but in what ways per moment? See? In what ways per individual in their moment? See? In what ways per individual with another individual in their moment, or individuals in their moment. See? So we need to put the microscope of intelligence on it and see what there is to make of it, whatever the moment is. And we're talking about riddles. We're talking about then confounding wisdom could be riddlic, right? And or paradoxes, which are the same. What use is a paradox? It's a good point.
Should I read the quote?
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you have a paradox?
there might be one in here, maybe a couple. Realize the earth in the sky and the sky in the earth, and know no difference to be the sameness of no similarities, and therefore true to no existence whatsoever.
That's like saying, it is what it is. It is as it is. That is also like saying the real is the real. There's no argument with that, depending on who you're speaking with. And what level their speech reveals they are operating from. If we're talking about wisdom people, then the more ambiguous and paradoxical it is, the sweeter it is. Because the truer it is. Similarities and samenesses are all relative, so that's all the same. That's clear, it's understood. Everything in nature is relative. And that's an absolute. That it's relative is absolutely the case.
So, this is another quote that was not quite in the same paradoxical vein, but it goes, "Of what possible use is any mind that is neither clear, pure, nor serene, nor resting at its source in blessed aloneness, nor radiant as its heart in transcendent divine love? what possible use? Which, when I read it, was really encouraging because for a little while almost felt like my mind, thought processes and such, self stuff was, to be thrown out almost, of no use.
Most of the garbage we entertain with our minds and process or allow in, we can classify it very simply and honestly as garbage. It depends on what your purpose is. To what degree do you need to have the kind of garbage, let's say, that is relative to current events? Say, garbage, right? Some people need that garbage. Some people need to know what's happening in the news. See, it's part of their stream, it's part of their survival process. See, their anxieties are all wrapped up in it, part of their politics. See, right. When they go to sleep, zero. When they wake up, they're neurotic. See, about the politics, see, of the times. So it's relative. Depends on what level of consciousness you are willing to assume that it's beyond neuroses. Because you, as a human being, with the gift of human nature, are prone to and quite adept at being a neurotic. Humans have a genius for neuroses. It's obvious. They're the best on the planet. Perfect examples. Comment? Yeah, listen carefully. In the world of self, there is no self. In the world of no self, there is no self. It's that simple. In the function of breathing, as stillness, there is no self. Hence, there is no neuroses. It could be considered as self-generated, self-created, self-manifesting, right? Self-imposed, self-projected. Yeah. Where is there a self? In the space of pure being. And of course, everyone is assuming self relative to their individual human nature. And the need to identify, relatively speaking, with all of that which is human nature. Human karma. Human conditions. Human life. So under what conditions is self arising as something appropriate to present or manifest as a mask relative to the false self, not the higher or transcendent self itself, the real self of self, the heart self, as distinct from, let's say, the trash self. True self, beyond self, no self. Isness, being. There is a level of reality or realization that is beyond question. There's no question. And there's also a level of reality that is beyond answering. And this kind of condition of zeroness, heartness, and spaciousness is occurring and arising continually in our presence as human beings, not only on Earth but throughout the universes. It's the isness, reality or basis for anything and everything that shows up. So it is what it is. And this is what practitioners who are on the spiritual path yield to more than not. So they move from the time world of compression into the potential of the spiritual world, or the non-material world of expansion, heart world, the time mind, heart space. Time mind, cosmic mind, heart space, beyond that. Beyond time and space, beyond the cosmos. The being, the imperceptible, incomprehensible beingness of what it is. Out of which, we have a universe. It's manifesting all the time. So out of nothing, everything is being created. That's the magic, the mystery, and the wonder of it all in one. And as it's being created, it's disappearing, it's being decreated, making way for itself continually. That's the creative, the self-transcending creative.
We are rolling.
Perfect. The plus is that we are configured as beings interacting with one another on this planet relative to the universe. This planet implies the microbial and the subatomic as well as the macrocosmic, which this is an extension of. Earth, planet, plane of reality, material plane of reality. And so we have the plus of being able to associate with one another at a common ground level. We call it the norm for many, although there may not be such a thing beyond. Well, whereas the minus factor is, so the plus is, it's all here, but the minus factor is that in what way is it there for the specific individual who may have no resonance with the norm as such? It might be too low for a certain being. So they're out of touch with the norm, completely, radically beyond the norm. They have no norms as such. They have their own norm. It might be a more extreme norm. And so the universe is set up to facilitate all of the extremes that could be called, or should be called, the norm, relative to beings in general. But then we have the fact of the individual living in its own extreme universe. Once we start to consider that there's the outer manifestation of the universe into the macro, and then you have the same in reverse going into the micro universe. We also have the phenomenon of going in both extremes at the same time. Macrocosmic universal intelligence and microcosmic universal impersonal intelligence operating simultaneously. Who wants to talk to that peep? Who's going to offer them a beer? And a boiga. or the right time of day. So, most material scientists are on the outer levels, macrocosmic stuff. So, sense and nonsense. That means potential. Then you have the more psychic, mystic, introverted, sometimes artistic types that are working from the inner. In the universes of their given or chosen phenomena to manifest. That would be music, sound, or light, painting, or mind, thinking, philosophizing, and so on. Then you have the more esoteric individuals who are operating comfortably at their level of extreme introversion, let's say, in terms of subjective sensing and, let's say, comprehending of spiritual phenomena, spiritual data. Okay. Most people have no access to because they have no interest in it. And those beings who are on the extreme inner, as those on the extreme outer, are very important to the purposes and the survival of the general. Say, everyone needs to be heard. Most people have common ground, and so they're generally okay with most people. And then you have those who are given a more not necessarily superior, but more intense level of, let's say, perceiving or knowing or expressing than others. And it's all part of it. But the general, right? The more look-alike, be-alike, talk-alike peeps, they don't want to get close to the more extreme because they have no reality with the extremes. Doesn't mean the extremes don't do a service to everybody else. Doesn't mean that, they're bad, or they are doing what they're here to do. So we all have specific purpose to be in the general, and then we have, to some degree, have to find out for ourselves where we need to deal with our extremeness, our uniqueness, let's say. Not our generalship relative to everybody else that we would have to say fits into the stream of mediocrity. Everything's generally the same. Going in the same direction with people like in comfort with one another. With general and medium intensity. Like it's okay, tolerating, bumping off of one another, communicating around and about one another. But not going deep at all, because the deepness there is not required. There's no deepness there. There's no yearning or longing for the deepness in that. Okay. Because the general and the average is good enough. It's plenty. See? It's abundantly available to all people. The general.
Is there even a sense of gravity that would bring these extreme peeps back in?
Back into where? Where's there to be? They're where they are.
Right, yeah.
They're where they are. They're not out of place. I just made the point.
Yeah.
They're exactly where they need to be. And so they are where they are. Right? That's for them to know and others to try and figure out. See? Because these extreme, if there are those who are that extreme, they're fine. They're perfectly where they need to be and they know it. And they're out of the stream and yet in the stream at the same time. They know there's nobody to talk to. But they're inner, see, the higher self. For real. And then, of course, there are others that you can talk with if you need to, but not at the same level. You can talk about it, but it's not at the same level. So there's no question about people needing people in order to help each other make adjustments, but then the adjustments are towards what? More materialization, which is possible and more normal, or more spiritualization, which is not necessarily as easy, and more recreational intelligence, which is also not as easy. Because it deals then with futurity. Futurism. The uncreated, but in the process of becoming what it needs to be. Futuristics. And of course there's, beyond that, the transcendists. The transcenders, who are not interested in any manifestation of time whatsoever, because they're at a certain level of resonance with the perfection of being already. There's no time there. We're just here. And they can choose to talk with anyone, and everyone, and no one. It's the same thing. They're in the realm of disinterest. Like a Buddha, completely disinterested, yet spontaneously manifesting. From original light to body to light. From original light to light of body, body light, to emotional light, to memory light, to mental light, to psychic, astral, and etheric light, yes, to spiritual light, to light. Is light. Yeah. So just light. This is the way of practice. Light to light.
There's a T.S. Eliot quote that goes something like, well, the journey is only to arrive back at where you began, knowing the place for the first time.
So there's no journey then. What's he talking about? You never budge, you're just here. T.S., take a break. Relax, Omito. Yeah. Now what he's saying. Yeah, so you're just here, there's no journey. That's direct, there's no journey. So there's no back, there's no forward, you're just here. So, yeah. You're always just here. So, proper recognition of space as nowness and presence. It's here, always here. Already gone, because you're only always here. So you're already gone. Are you asking what is a step? Is there a step? Everything is a step. Every moment is a step, actually. Every breath is a step. Every thought is a step. Every brainwave is a step. Every heartbeat is a step. It's one less. A step towards completion. Everything is a step towards completion. And you can be going around circles forever and not really make a step in the spirit of progression, just going around in circles. A lot of people prefer that to any change. And so they make sure that they remain in that pattern of the circle. There's no change. You keep coming right back to the same thing. Habit. A habit needs to be understood properly. So there are useful habits, and then there are not so useful habits. Like the habit of hitting oneself over the head with a hammer. Maybe not so useful. Maybe. Depends. But human nature is as much product of habit, and mechanical habit at that. Unconscious mechanical habits. We need to see that and change it as needed. See? From the viewpoint of what needs to be recreated in terms of a more positive, useful habit, maybe a habit of stepping up, out and forward, up. That's a good habit, but you need to define that for yourself. Otherwise, you're part of this carousel. See? It's going around in circles, which can go on as long as you're alive, and no change need occur except aging and boredom, or maybe excitement, depending on your level of intelligence. It could be very exciting to be going around in circles. It's thrilling, blissful. See? Torturously pleasurable. Be going around nowhere.
You mentioned in a video years ago that one way to know whether you're going in the right direction, maybe developing the right habits, is that it gets easier.
Well, familiarity and getting easier means it's unconscious. To be careful. There's a good easier, if you're talking about getting into meditation practice, where the discipline is to bring your noise to silence. When that gets easier, then that's good. If going into a deeper state of consciousness is what you recognize to be a progression, an evolutionary progression for yourself, then getting easier means great. And then that disappears, and then what is it? We have to question, is what it is easy, or is what it is hard, or is what it is neither easy nor hard? And we'd have to go with the latter. What it is neither. Some things can be necessarily and perhaps appropriately easier. Other things similarly have to be harder, depending on what your movement is, what your function is, what your direction is, what your role is, what your purpose is. Know your purpose. To become enlightened, did you say, what is that? What does that mean?
I guess relative to purpose, or
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Enlightenment may have something to do with no purpose. If there was such a thing as enlightenment, say, may have more to do with no purpose, zero, and less than zero. Zero is too big for enlightenment. Zero is too much for enlightenment. Perhaps it's a word. I mean, for humans, we need to step down a little bit from whatever enlightenment could be and say, no, lighten up. It's lighten up. Be happier. Be happier. Take yourself more lightly, and others more kindly, and then maybe we'd be surviving better as a whole. As long as enlightenment is a thing, it's no thing. As long as enlightenment is no thing, it's a thing. And a thing is as good as everything. And everything's as good as anything.
So when someone asks the question, what is my purpose?
Second.
When someone asks the question, what is my purpose?
It's what you're doing. You better hope that what you're doing is also in tune with what you're needing to be doing, so that you're not in some kind of heavy-duty, catastrophic dilemma of being in the wrong place at the wrong time within yourself. And in that case, you're being, what you're supposed to be being is maybe miserable, depressed, see, depending, or ecstatic, or nothing. The dignity of nothingness is that powerful and profound that when you give up with everything else, you always have this. So you are never without this. Original dignity. The dignity of being, zero, nothing. The clearness of zero. The beauty of zero. The completeness of zero. The perfection of zero. The fulfillment of zero. The realization of zero. And the result of zero. Where you completely do not want BS to show up, BS will not show up. Where there's no room for BS, there's no BS, by the way. Who is willing to be healed by silence? Who is willing to enter the healing power silence is? Who can tolerate the grace of silence? Who can withstand the presence of silence? Who can hear the voice of silence? Who can contain the joy of silence? Who can live for the love of silence? Who can breathe for the sake of silence? Who can be the way of silence?